Hello everybody and welcome back to Expert Examiner IELTS. My name is Glyn and in this video we're going to give some feedback on Sergey's speaking test. I apologize for the small break that I've had the last few days. I haven't been feeling well, but I'm starting to feel better now. Anyway, let's get into this feedback.
Good morning. My name is Glyn. Would you please tell me your full name?
Hello, my full name is Maslov Sergey Pavlovich, but you can call me Sergey.
Okay, thank you, Sergey. Now, in this first part of the test, I'm going to ask you some questions
You can hear my voice that I'm sick there, I hope.
about yourself. What town or city do you live in?
I live in a pretty big town, which is called Rostov-on-Don.
Cool, pretty big town, very nice. Which is called, very nice.
It is situated in the south part of my country. It has
Situated, fine.
a huge population, slightly more than 1 million people officially, but unofficially we have much more.
We have much more, fine. Many more, perhaps, with people, but okay.
And do you like living in this place?
Yeah, so one thing, I have to interrupt the candidate because I just feel like he would probably just keep speaking. And of course, as an examiner here, you have a list of questions, and you have a number of questions that you must get through, right? Part of the, we all think about the criteria of things that the candidate needs to do, but there is also a list of things that the examiner needs to do. And one of those things is you need to get through X number of questions in part one within this time. And so, sometimes examiners have to interrupt.
Yes, I like living in my hometown.
So, first question about where do you live? The candidate's quite fine. He's fluent. He comes out with a language. But then, as soon as another question comes in, it's clear that the candidate needs some time to kind of process the question, think about the answer, prepare an answer, and then produce it. So the language doesn't emerge quickly from the candidate.
Because it's a nice place. It's a nice place to live.
Okay, it's a nice place to live, but that's kind of like a tautology, right? Do you like living there? Yes, it's a nice place to live. Fine, but what we're really looking for is an explanation of why it's a nice place to live if you like living there.
Because we don't have a lot of heavy industries.
Cool.
It's just a commercial town.
Cool.
And also...
And notice I mentioned this thing a lot about comfort, discomfort, and pain. And sometimes you can hear it in the voice. Just notice the little exhaling of breath, like the... which is something we often do when we are in pain. So just notice it a little bit in this candidate's answer here.
It's just a commercial town. And also...
And... So you can just hear it slightly. Now, by itself, of course, this isn't evidence. This isn't a reason to pull a mark down. But of course, it is, as always in IELTS, the examiner works with a body of evidence. And this is a contributing piece of evidence that maybe suggests that the candidate isn't comfortable speaking at length without giving these like painful signs of like, ah.
So we grew a lot of different...
We grew in the past, or we grow in general?
Food, for example, sunflowers. So it's an agriculture.
A few people mentioned in the comment about the candidate's eye contact. Some people suggested that the candidate might be trying to cheat, like he's reading the answers. The candidate doesn't know the questions beforehand, so the candidate cannot be cheating. The candidate cannot be looking at stuff. Now, sure, about your hometown, you might think that you can prepare some notes, but I don't believe this candidate is cheating at all. I don't think the candidate is reading from notes. I think maybe, a couple of possible reasons. Maybe the candidate's laptop is a little bit lower, so he's looking down, or maybe he's just an introvert who finds it difficult to look into a camera or something like this, or difficult to maintain eye contact. It happens sometimes. You are not judged on your body language. You are not judged on your eye contact, at least not officially. But of course, examiners are human. And I want to make this point. Examiners are human. And if you're kind of between two scores, between a 6 and a 5, it happens all the time where examiners are not sure. They think, well, it could be a 6, it could be a 5, or it could be a 7, or it could be a 6. I'm not sure which mark to award for this. Small things like body language, like how well dressed you are, while it's of course not in the official criteria, and of course examiners receive training to evaluate candidates only on their language, examiners are still human. And if the examiner likes you as a person, if they are borderline between a 6 and a 7 and they like you, they'll give you a 7. If they are borderline 6 and a 7 and they don't like you, or they feel that your body language is a little bit negative, they might go towards a 6. It happens sometimes. But okay, enough. Let's continue.
Cultural center.
Do you think
as
you
well.
will? Do you think you will continue living in this place in the future?
Honestly, I'm not sure about it
Cool. Honestly, I'm not sure about it. Nice.
because, for example, Moscow can give you much more working opportunities
Cool. Working opportunities. Nice.
and payment will be better in this town, of course. So
Yeah, candidate really struggles with developing answers, speaking at length. There are just moments where, he gives a fine answer, he develops it a little bit, but it's clear that he hasn't finished his turn. It's clear that he wants to say more. And so, as an examiner, I don't step in and ask the next question because I want to give him that opportunity to finish. But then he just breaks down.
I don't have huge intentions to
Cool. I like this. I don't have huge intentions to do something. Very nice.
leave my city, but if I will find
If I find, not if I will find. Small mistake with conditionals. We generally, although if you get to advanced, you might learn some more rules there, but usually we don't use will in the if clause in conditionals, like if I have a chance, not if I will have a chance. Okay.
a job, I think I will consider relocation.
Cool, we'll consider relocation. I think I want to use a gerund here. I will consider relocating. For me, that sounds better, but the noun consider relocation, it's okay.
Let's talk about education now.
Okay, so now we're certainly out of theory now, right? So if you believe that the candidate has prepared answers and written them down about his hometown, okay, but now we're moving to education. So this is totally off script now. This is unpredictable. We can't predict what themes will come up in part 1. We know that you'll probably be asked questions about your work, your studies, or your hometown. That's almost a guarantee. But then the topics that come after that could be anything. We're on education.
What was your favorite subject in school?
At school, I liked maths
Cool. Hitting that past tense. I liked maths.
more than other lessons.
Not lessons, but subjects. Lessons are things you have like twice a week or 3 times a week or something.
And also, I was very keen on chemistry.
Okay, I was very keen on it. It sounds natural here. I'm not a fan of keen on. I'm not a fan of fond of, but the candidate does use it naturally here.
That's
Why?
why.
Why?
It's a great pleasure to solve different interesting tasks, puzzles.
Maybe equations is the word you're looking for, but yeah, puzzles, tasks, fine.
I enjoyed this part of subjects.
And did you ever have any problems with any of your school teachers?
No, nothing really special here. I didn't have any kind of problems at all at school.
So that answer is underdeveloped. Now I know, most people think, well, if I didn't have any problems, what can I possibly say? Well, there are a number of things. Maybe there were other kids who had problems with teachers, or maybe there were some teachers that you really had the opposite situation with, where you absolutely loved them, right? So did you ever have any problems with any of your teachers? No, in my school, everything was pretty cool. The teachers, they treated us with respect. And so in turn, we as kids also showed some respect to our teachers. I remember particularly our history teacher was really, really blah 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 blah, right? So you can develop it in a different way. Even if the answer is no, I didn't have any problems, we should always be thinking about ways to develop. Again, will you be punished for underdeveloping one answer? No. Will you be punished for underdeveloping many answers? Yes.
And are there any things that you'd like to learn more about in the future?
Oh, I would like definitely to learn more.
Word order is strange. I would like definitely to learn more. I would definitely like to learn more is better. I would definitely like. We like to sandwich that. Would definitely like. Definitely coming before the main verb. Would definitely like.
Japanese language. So I tried to do so. I like culture of this country. I even once practiced kendo.
So of course, as a human here, it's like, oh wow, you want to learn Japanese and you did kendo, right? As a human, I'm curious now and I'm interested and I want to ask more about it. But as an examiner, unfortunately, I can't, and so I just have to move to the next question. So sorry about that. But best of luck with your Japanese studies. Not easy to learn languages that have kanji.
Let's talk about movies now. What type of movies do you enjoy watching?
Fantasy movies for sure.
Cool. I like the direct answer. Fantasy movies for sure.
And something about future.
Again, it's not enough, is it? Fantasy and something about the future. The obvious development for any answer is asking yourself the question why, or explaining or giving reasons why you like it. So it isn't enough. You could also give examples here. Maybe there's something you've watched recently, a fantasy and, anything about the future. Like I watched recently this series on Netflix called Love, Death and Robots. Basically, it's like they have a lot of different short episodes where they talk about some like strange dystopian future themes. And I really like this type of stuff because it makes me imagine what might be possible for us in the future. That's a developed answer. It isn't enough, unfortunately, IELTS just to answer the question. If you're a human, if we're sitting down having a drink in the bar and I say, oh, what kind of movies do you like? And you say, oh, fantasy or anything about the future. That's fine as an answer. In an IELTS test, we should remember it is an English test. And so the examiner's trying to, wants to hear as much of your language as possible so that they can judge you on it.
Why do you like these kinds of movies?
Again, candidate seems in pain a little bit.
I like unusual, extraordinary stuff.
Still not really digging into a reason why. And the reason we ask these questions is like, do you have enough vocab? Can you express your feelings? It can be an extremely difficult thing to do, to explain why we like something, right? And I've made this point many times on this channel that the lower level learners, they can say I like it. Why? Because it's interesting, because it's good. But when you get to that like B2 level, that's where you should have enough language to really articulate or explain reasons why you like something. So instead of saying that something is interesting or something is good or even something is unusual, do you have that vocabulary, the depth of that vocabulary to explain why you find something interesting, why you like unusual things?
Special effects in movies are very nice.
And again, it's basic. I mean, it's okay. Special effects in movies are very nice. It's connected to the topic, so it is, topic-related vocabulary. But more of an exploration. Why are special effects important for you?
If we're speaking about something connected with space.
And do you have a favorite actor or director?
Let it be Henry Cavill.
I don't know who that is. I'm really bad with movies and TV shows and actors and directors, so I don't know. But again, it isn't enough, Henry Cavill. That isn't in an English language test. It isn't enough to say just a name we have to develop.
Why do you like Henry Cavill?
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. Henry Cavill, is that his name?
For me, he is an example of a nice, smart, strong man.
Okay, he's a nice, strong, smart man. Nothing wrong with that language. But why do you like him as a director? And again, do we have that vocabulary to explain why Henry Cavill's movies or TV shows or whatever, why they are so impressive for you?
And how often do you go to the cinema?
Not
So moving to a simpler question.
often, honestly. I prefer to watch movies at home
Give a reason.
because I'm introverted type of personality.
Cool, nice vocab.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a it's minor development, but it's very suitable development. I prefer watching them at home because I'm an introverted type of person. Cool.
Yeah. Now, in this next...
All right, so comments on part one. So generally, the candidate has enough language to kind of deal with those questions on a very direct level. Candidate fails to go deeper with vocabulary. And so with the vocab so far, I'm thinking, well, you know, the vocab is suitable for band 6 at this level, but in part 1 it's kind of easy, and I think the candidate will struggle in parts 2 and 3 with vocab, but at the moment the vocab is enough to deal with it. Grammar, not too many mistakes, controls reasonably well for grammar. We don't have a huge variety of structures, but you know, not too many grammatical mistakes so far. Pronunciation is fine, clear, easy to understand. The language is a little bit slow. And fluency is probably so far maybe the candidate's weakest part. You know, he's okay. He develops answers in a very basic way. There were a couple of questions that were like critically underdeveloped. And the most important thing is that the candidate sometimes, when he's faced with a question, it's clear that he needs that time to kind of, it's almost like his brain is sitting and processing the question and trying to understand it and thinking about it and analyzing the question, and then needs to prepare an answer, and all of that stuff takes time. So the volume, and I don't mean how loud, I mean volume in terms of how much language is produced, that volume is quite low. But yeah, part 1, I feel like candidate does okay with it. And, you know, part 1, the target level is kind of A2, B1. And I think, you know, what we say is A2s will have difficulty with part 1, B1s will be comfortable. And I think the candidate is reasonably comfortable dealing with this. And I think his level shows B1, and I don't think he will get above B1. But let's see what happens in part 2. The task that he has is to describe a technological gadget that he finds useful. So lots of chances here to exploit vocabulary. Most people know a lot of vocab about technology, about apps, about, you know, downloading, and about, I don't know, app stores and stuff like this, and social media and blah, blah, blah. But let's see how the candidate does. I'm really interested in the candidate's fluency here, because so far the candidate has shown that he does find it difficult to maintain a flow of speech and to continue speaking at length. And filling 2 minutes, I think, will be tough for the candidate.
Describe a technological... Okay, so that's the end of your preparation time. To remind you, you will have between 1 and 2 minutes to give your talk, and I will let you know when the time is up. Can you start speaking now, please?
Yes, I would like to start. I would like to describe as a gadget a smart.
Okay, the introduction is a little bit long. I would like to start. I would like to describe a technological... You can just start. I'm going to tell you about my smartphone, and then we're right into it. But okay, if you want to introduce, okay.
Phone. Of course, everyone knows that it's a small.
Cool. Everyone knows hitting that third person S. Good.
A computer with opportunities to call people.
It's a small computer with opportunities to call people. Okay. Again, you hear that pain. I hear that pain.
Have been using it.
Cool. So the candidate has, you know, he's been thinking, Okay, how long? Present perfect continuous. I have been using it. Cool.
Since I was 18 or 20.
Good. So that is a complex bit of grammar, present perfect continuous, and to use it with since and then following since with past simple. So, candidate does demonstrate that in his brain he has, he's learnt grammar. He has some understanding of grammar, even at like quite high level.
I use it usually on daily basis, and you can use it for several things, not only.
Kind of disconnected, right? Like I've been using it for since I was there. I usually use it on a daily basis. You can use it for several things. Those sentences are just stacked together, but I don't see how ideas are, smoothly linked.
Only for calls, of course. You can make notes with help of this gadget. Also, I'm very keen on tabletop mini war games and programs for such entertainment.
They're always struggling, right? It feels like candidate is always looking for a word, and when he finds the word, he's looking for the next word. I'm keen on tabletop mini war games, and this gadget is good for this entertainment, and so always struggling to find the next bit of language. It doesn't come out of the candidate naturally and smoothly. It's always like it's a fight to find that next idea, to find that next piece of language.
On this device helps me out during games.
Yeah, candidate is really struggling for ideas here. And again, this part excuse me, part of this is just technique. It's just about doing this task 100 times. I advise my students who are taking IELTS, do this every day in front of the mirror many times. Do it for 2 minutes so that you know what 2 minutes feels like. Have a strategy for how you take your notes. Don't go into it blind and just think, oh, I'll take any random notes. There are many different strategies that we can follow with preparing, with using that 1 minute of preparation time, but we should have a strategy, and that strategy, how we take notes, should help you to fill that 2 minutes. And by practicing every day, you'll feel what 2 minutes feels like. You'll learn how to develop answers so that we're not, it seems like the candidate is almost surprised by this situation. Like, oh my God, I'm in this situation where I have to speak for 2 minutes. If you're a serious IELTS candidate, this just really shouldn't be a surprise. It should be second nature. It should almost feel mechanical. It shouldn't sound mechanical, but it should feel mechanical. That you're like, okay, so I want to talk to you today about da 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 da. So getting to the point about da 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 da, I'd like to say that da 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 da. Now moving on to da 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 da. Right, all of that stuff should be second nature to you about how to transition from one point to the next point to the next point smoothly. This feels like it's the candidate's first ever time doing an IELTS Part 2, and it might be.
Smartphone also helps you to make money transactions.
It seems like this is an idea that the candidate has just thought of right now, and that really shouldn't be the case, because you have that 1 minute time to prepare, and that's where your ideas should come from, so that you don't have to spontaneously produce ideas on the spot.
You can share your photos by Instagram, for example, or any other kind of social media.
So we're getting to a lot of you can, like just things that you can do, and you can da 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 da, you can da 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 da, and also you can da 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 da. Feels a little bit like we're not making progress.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So once it feels like, once the 2 minutes are up, or if it feels like the candidate has broken down and isn't going to continue, then step in and say thank you and move on. So As expected, the candidate had big problems with fluency, wasn't able to generate a flow of speech. And this, part two, target level is B1, B2. We expect B1s to have big problems, and we expect B2s to manage to get through it fine. Just thinking in terms of global achievement, which isn't a criterion on the IELTS test, but in terms of global achievement, I don't think he's satisfactory. He explained this gadget in a satisfying way. I think it was clear to any person, not just to a teacher, but to any person looking at this, you would say, yeah, the candidate really, well, in part one, yeah, the candidate answered those questions. In part two, nah, the candidate didn't really deal with that. And so, the candidate is at B1 speaking level. Probably candidate in terms of grammar might have a higher level. In terms of actually doing vocab tasks, might have a higher level. In terms of like English that he knows in his brain cognitively, he might have a higher level, but in terms of language production, in terms of performing in a speaking test, it's clear that the candidate is B1. But let's get to part three. We won't listen to all of part three. We'll just listen to a few questions because he runs into the same types of problems. But let's start.
So you've been talking about your smartphone. Let's move on and talk about technology in general now. How has technology changed the way that we communicate?
Of course, nowadays we have internet connection between people around the world, and we have this nice opportunity to have dialogue between us. Um,
Do you think the way we communicate with technology is better now?
we do it too much, in my opinion.
Okay, good functional language, in my opinion.
Because previously we had
So again, we're talking about this thing of strain, of difficulty, of effort, of pain. Quite clear that the candidate is struggling. And so as an examiner, there are a couple of things. You could suggest ideas. You can simplify the question. Or you can just move to another question.
we used to do hiking, for example, much
Do hiking, go hiking, but okay.
more often when we hadn't such devices.
Didn't have, not hadn't. Hadn't is used in past perfect. It's followed by a verb. Hadn't done, hadn't seen, but not with a noun. Hadn't such devices. We don't use it with nouns. I know English is a strange thing. Sometimes have is a main verb, right? I have something, I don't have something. I had something, I didn't have something. Sometimes have is an auxiliary verb in perfect tenses. I have done something, I haven't done something. So the negative form of have depends on what type of have we have. Is it a main verb? Is it an auxiliary verb? It's complicated stuff. I could explain it in a grammar video, but I don't make grammar videos. Maybe one day.
Like computer or smartphone, and it
Yeah, so in the middle of an idea, candidate completely breaks down and can't repair it. So we move to the next question.
Let's move on and talk about technology in education now. How do you think technology might change the way that we educate our children?
if to be honest, I'm a little bit.
If to be honest, we don't use if I'm honest or honestly or to be honest is fine, but not if to be honest.
Scared by technologies in
Not with a ch, not technologies. I know in Russian it's technologia with a ch sound, but in English we don't have the ch sound. People who are from Liverpool have the ch sound. I don't like it. I don't like it. If you talk about the Loch Ness Monster, we have the ch sound. Other than that, we don't have the ch sound. So not technologies, but technology with a hard k, technology.
education, because they can even
So again, candidate has this problem right in the middle of his answer. He just breaks down.
We might use them instead of a teacher, and teacher is, in my opinion, is a necessity for education process.
Again, the candidate, I think, is showing enough, grammatical control for a 6. I think he's showing enough grammatical control for a 6, for sure. In terms of vocabulary, probably has enough for a 6. It's just whether there is enough there. And I think the breakdown in some of the answers might suggest a lack of vocabulary to deal with it. So, and between that 5 and a 6 with vocabulary. Because when candidates break down, we automatically think, okay, it's fluency, right? Candidate has bad fluency. Candidate can't develop an answer. But so much of it is vocabulary. So much of it is, I have an idea in my head. I just don't know the words that I can use to express that idea. And so with short answers like this, or with answers where you break down, you might think it's just your fluency and coherence that you're affecting, but it is your vocab too.
I saw how our government tried to swap the teacher by a screen, and it is not
Swap a teacher for a screen, with a screen.
helpful at all for education of pupils, because pupils are not attentive during such
Are not attentive, good.
classes. They use their gadgets, smartphones, to play games or just to have a chat with their friends, but they are not studying anything at all.
But don't you think that if we get technology that is able to get more students' attention, that it could become better?
I can't see it.
So yeah, I am challenging the candidate on his opinion. I always think that's a good thing to do for an examiner in part 3, to dig in deeper. Again, it shows if the candidate has enough vocabulary and enough fluency and enough ability to think on the spot to develop answers. Some people really don't like being challenged on their opinions, but it's just a natural part of a discussion.
Such possibility. For me, technologies can be addition to a normal teacher.
Again, candidate is showing decent language here.
In such way, we can achieve good results in education.
And finally, are there
good results in it? Okay, fine.
any future technological devices that you hope to see in the future?
Once I hope to see a quantum computer, but as I know, currently it might be impossible to create such thing.
I thought I saw something recently about this quantum computer. Somebody told me that the Chinese were close to it, but I don't know. I'm not an expert in this sphere.
Because it is not stable.
And what
I heard it would be the end of encryption and all of that stuff. But anyway, quantum computing, that's another issue. But I think I'm gonna leave it there. I'm gonna get into some marks. Yeah, so let's talk firstly about fluency and coherence, which I think is the candidate's weakest part. I think 4 is the fair mark here. So you did okay. You did okay in part 1, although some answers were underdeveloped. Cool, underdeveloped. However, you really struggled to maintain a flow of speech in parts 2 and 3. And I think, if anyone, even non-examiners, non-IELTS candidates, non-English students, anyone watching that would just notice that, oh, yeah, that candidate he was okay in part 1, but he really had difficulties in part 2 and 3. Lexical resource. So you actually show quite a deep vocabulary, but your failure to go deeper, to dig deeper, maybe deeper into questions, perhaps shows some weaknesses here. So the language that you produce is fine. Once you get going, once you start producing language, it's like, yeah, you do have enough vocab to deal with these subjects. But then, you know, the moment that you're asked to explain why you like a director or why you like certain films or why you believe certain things, it is clear that you break down. And I think part of that might be a lack of lexical resource. So I'm going to award 5, but I think, you know, you probably have enough vocab for a 6, maybe even for a 7. If your fluency was great, if your ability to produce ideas, maybe if that was a bit faster, you might even get to that level 7 in vocabulary. But for me, because of those so many short answers, so many breakdowns, so many failures to go deeper into conversations, I'm awarding the 5, but an examiner could give you 6. I think for grammatical range and accuracy, you do have 6. So I think your control of basic grammar is generally good. You know, a few small mistakes, like if I will do something or we hadn't such opportunities, that's quite basic grammar and you have those mistakes. But, you know, you hit your third person S's, you use past simple where you need to use past simple. You also used some complex structures. Use present perfect continuous with since plus past simple, right? I've been using it since I was 10 years old or something like that. So, you know, there is some complex grammar there, but probably not enough over the test to award anything higher. Pronunciation, I think I can award, maybe I can award the 6. No, I'm between the 6 and the 5, and I'll probably go with the 5 overall. So in general, it is pretty easy to understand you. However, your speech is often quite mechanical and lacking in intonation. I feel like to get a 6, you really need a bit more intonation than this. It feels like, you know, you have one mode, and when people speak, they should have, you know, an emotional range where they talk about things that they're enthusiastic about, or things that they're not quite sure about, or things that they're very sure about. You know, there should be some type of intonation that demonstrates some kind of emotional range, and it feels like you only have this one mode where when you are thinking about the next piece of language, so your brain is always focused on that next bit of language, that next vocab, that next bit of grammar, and so that doesn't allow you to demonstrate, you know, intonation and anything else with pronunciation. So for me, pronunciation 5, but again, an examiner could give you a 6. So a generous examiner might give you a 5.5, which is upper intermediate. I've given you a 5 overall, and I feel like that is fair. I think overall, probably this performance is deserving of B1. So 5.0. The things to work on, areas of improvement. So of course, fluency is your biggest weakness. And I think you would benefit a lot from speaking practice. There are some students where I think speaking practice isn't what you need, right? There are some students who are chatterboxes who speak and speak and speak and speak and speak, and they think that they need more practice in order to speak better. And that's not always true. Sometimes speaking practice without a goal, without a strategy, without a, you know, a particular focus on something, sometimes that speaking practice isn't, you know, exactly what every candidate needs. But I think with this candidate, he just needs to get into that flow of what it means to communicate with a human in English, to understand what is a block, what does it mean to bond with someone, what does it mean to make a good impression, to have an understanding of like, oh, when I speak slowly or when I speak without an emotive range, I fail to make that connection with the person. And so then you look for strategies of how you can not only use English to explain ideas, but also use English to kind of bond with people, to laugh with people. And I think this social aspect of the language is really lacking in this candidate. The candidate needs to feel what it means to use English as an instrument to communicate human to human, not just to express an algorithm or an idea or something like this. And I think that would help a lot. I think it would pull more vocab out of the candidate. I don't think the candidate would benefit from, sitting and learning grammar or sitting and learning vocab sheets. I just think this candidate needs more human practice, human to human English language practice. And I think, his level would quickly develop. Now, is this possible? I don't know. Sometimes candidates feel, especially introverted people, introverted people often don't really like speaking to other people. At least, they don't like things like small talk, or they don't see the value in these empty type of conversations. So I think the candidate should try to develop, and I know it sounds terrible, but should try to develop as a person. And I say this as someone who's gone through this myself, right? I'm a natural introvert. I grew up pretty introverted, I would say, and certainly in my late teens, I was very introverted. I had to learn to become a good communicator, and it's such a wonderful feeling when you break through that barrier. I'm not saying that you have to, be fake and make small talk and do this all the time, but having the ability to do that is great for language development. Yeah, so I think, candidates should work on becoming more sociable in general as a person, and I think that would benefit his English. Yeah, so overall for me, candidate deserves a score of 5.0, intermediate for this speaking test. If you agree or disagree with anything I say, of course, feel free to let me know in the comments. I have had a number of very strange comments recently, but that's okay. Good comments, strange comments, unusual comments, it's all good. If you are a regular viewer of the channel, please do subscribe and feel free to share my videos anywhere where you think they might, I don't know, be viewed by somebody. Yeah, and finally, if you would like your own free practice speaking test with this level of feedback, or if you would like me to check your IELTS writing tasks, you can request this on my Telegram channel, Expert Examiner. A link to this Telegram channel is given in the description. But that's it for now. I will be back very soon with a few more videos. But have a wonderful day and see you all soon. Bye-bye.